I get those goosebumps every time. I get those goosebumps every time. I get those goosebumps every time.
Hold on.
I get those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps every time. Yeah, 713 through the 281. Yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key at Onyx. Find a rider when I'm pulling up right beside.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Loaded Mag NUFC. Talking Toon, new different type of show we're going to bring you to you tonight, and we've got just the right guest to come on and do it. But welcome everyone in the chat. Hope you're all well. Do the good thing, housekeeping and all. Make sure you click the like and of course subscribe to the channel as we approach and push towards 7k subscribers. But first of all, out of all of that, boys, Daz, Chris, how are we on this fantastic Wednesday evening?
Great, grand, not too bad at all, Pete. All good. We've a poll running as well. We have a poll running in the background. Who would you start at left back on against Forest? So I've narrowed it down to two options. I didn't include Lewis Hall or Alex Murphy. Let's keep it to Dan Byrne and Tino Livramento. So get voting now. Chatting to the lads.
Good stuff. Chris, I know you've been on your travels last day or so. How are things?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm currently sat in the Millennium Hotel in Stamford Bridge. So yeah, it seems a bit weird looking out my window and I can see I'm in Stamford Bridge. So that's interesting. I'll tell you what else was an interesting one. When I was walking past the wall on the sides as I'm on my way to work this morning, guess when Chelsea's next game is at Stamford Bridge?
Oh, I don't know.
Our game.
Is it? I was going to say it is.
Yeah. It's advertised on the side. Yeah, it's like nearly 4 weeks away. So that surprised me. But yeah, that's the advertisements on the side of the wall. So yeah, but yeah, other than that, mate, I'm all good. Looking forward to going back to Liverpool tomorrow. Not going to lie, but it's always nice to come down and see people in my team and stuff like that. But yeah, I am all good, mate. I'm really looking forward to the chat tonight with the boys.
Definitely. And look, I'm going to throw some questions at all of you boys on the panel to see what your answers are to that. And people in the chat as well, get your answers in as well. And make sure you've clicked your opinion on the poll. But look, let's get them in. Let's not...
You need a target, Pete. You need a target. You need a target for likes.
Targets, man. You're the target, man.
Let's go 300 likes. Let's go 300 likes. Go on. Let's try that. But yeah, you're right. You're right, Pete. Let's get the lads in. Pick one of the lads first. Who are you bringing in first?
Well, let's bring your Irish buddy along first. Let's get him in.
Let's bring in Tevin. And I'm lucky enough I didn't wear this top and it would have clashed with the green screen anyway. But here's Tevin. Welcome, Tevin. Welcome back to the
Hi, lads. How are you?
Very, very well. Thank you,
mate.
How are you getting on? Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for giving us a platform to talk all things Irish Mags and all opinions that we want to bring.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. And of course, returning again from True Faith, Alex Hurst.
Welcome, Alex.
Evening, lads. Nice to see you.
And you, looking forward to the chat as always. And finally, we've got the main man. We've got Mr. Adam Pearson, Adam P, as people know him.
Welcome back, Adam.
Hello, lads. It's good to be back in Loaded Mag. It's been quite a while now, actually. I think the last time I was on must be in preparation to the charity game last year, so it's been a little while. But it's good to be back. Appreciate it, lads, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Great stuff. And look, it won't be long before you prep it again. I think we're going to need your help in the next one. That's for sure. But look, really, really good to have you guys on. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us first and foremost. And look, There's a lot going on at Newcastle United, lots of different talking points, various different things happening. And I've just kind of just put a few questions, some that have been talked about on socials and in general, some that are not. And I just thought, you know what, let's put these questions to the panel, including ourselves that are as Loaded Boys as well. And people in the chat, feel free to get involved as well. And the first one, nice easy one for everyone to go through. So look, I'm going to start with you, Tevin, with this one, and people feel free to chip in on your opinions on this. My question to you, sorry, Daz, just for a second, just how good can Alexander Isak be for Newcastle United? Oh. Tevin.
Yeah, I think as good as he wants to be. I think it's just the injuries. I think we haven't seen probably the full version of Isak. I know there was a lot of talk about him kind of before joining Newcastle, that his injury record, like he was barely injured. Now with the way we play, obviously we're seeing a different kind of maybe style of Isak because he's injured a lot. But when he's good, he's very good. Like games watching at St James's Park, even goals. I was at the Liverpool game where he scored that fantastic. The Manchester City game where he scored the fantastic goal. And just the silkiness in terms of coming in and out, he reminds you of your young Henry. But really and truly, I still think we haven't seen the best version of him. I think any top side in the top six would take him. I think Arsenal are probably screaming out for a player like him, but he's ours. But I think really and truly he can go on and kind of do fantastic things as long as his injury record starts to decrease. So I think he can be a great, definitely for Newcastle United, but I think he can do really good stuff in his career, hopefully with us for the majority.
Definitely. Look, Alex, been a lot of talk about Alexander Isak. Interest elsewhere after Darren Eales came out with his interview early in January. Are you worried about Alexander Isak leaving us at any point in the next couple of years?
Yeah, massively, because he's a kid who he's scoring 1 and 2 for Newcastle United since he got here. He is, he's doing that while injury prone. He's doing that while in a struggling team, realistically, in the Premier League this season. So if you're a top European club and you want guaranteed goals, where are you going to look? You're going to look for teams that are outside the Champions League. At the minute you've got kind of Ivan Toney and probably, or let's see how the rest of the season goes, but probably Alexander Isak next season that you can get, because these lads want to play Champions League football. And it's one of the interesting things to me about the conversations at the minute Newcastle fans are having about what's a good season from here. We've got to try and finish 5th, because Alexander Isak needs to be playing the Champions League. And I'm not saying he'll leave if we don't get into the Champions League, but there's a much higher chance of him leaving if there's no Champions League football, because that's where he belongs. And he didn't play for us that much in the Champions League campaign as well. Another reason we've gone out. So I am worried about him and Bruno in particular, because you're looking at like top Premier League and European clubs would have those guys in their starting 11s a lot of the time. And it's not sustainable to keep them out of those starting 11s if we're finishing 9th. Maybe one season is okay, but yeah, he's, I agree with everything Tevin said there. Like he's a special talent, and I want to selfishly watch him play for Newcastle United for like the next 10 years. I don't want him to be pulling on another jersey, so I don't really, agree totally with the idea that the season's just a write-off. I don't think Alexander Isak will see the season as a write-off for a lot of those players. They're going to be wanting to finish in the top 6 at least, so everyone's going to kind of get behind that.
I think he's got 14 odd goals this season, sort of in all competitions. Really kind of excelling, Adam. But yeah, he hasn't played a lot of football. He's missed quite a lot of games and still picked up that sort of total. What would you say is a realistic target for Alexander Isak this season? We're hoping his injury is not too serious. We can never tell with Eddie Howe. It could be 2 days, it could be 2 months. We have no idea. But say he's back at around the Bournemouth game, and he stays fit for the end of the season. What would you how would you sort of assess his goal total, and what should be a target for him, in your opinion?
Well, I think he's on, about 10 in the league now, maybe a little bit just over that. But I mean, if he stays fit, you're probably expecting, I think, probably get 16, 17 mark. I think realistic in how Isak plays. But obviously, you want to try and have a high target there, 20 goals. Whether he hits it or not, another question. But it's just been tricky, really, because it's not just whether Isak can stay fit, it's also whether Wilson can stay fit. Because if Wilson's not fit, then Isak's starting every single match. And that's the big problem this season, because there was at points he's playing 3 times in a week, and that's hence why I think Isak's probably an injury-prone player. I think if we had 2 proper strikers and they're rotating constantly, I don't think Isak will probably get injured that much. So it's tricky. It is tricky to see how things go from here. I would love to see the stats of when Isak and Wilson are actually both in the on the start level on the bench. I would love to see Isak's stats, because I bet you they're much better than you are when Isak's only there. There's no Wilson whatsoever on the bench or on the start level. We desperately need to get an Irish strike win, I think, in the summer. It is also important. I think Alex made a good point actually about trying to get Champions League football. But I think even the Europa League, Conference League, if we get that, I think you'll still be fine enough. I always feel like, I swear, when clubs come in for our big players in the summer, I think the striker is probably the hardest to replace. Whereas if Bruno was to be so, you've still got Snarly there, not to mention the squad. You can go out and buy an extra midfielder. I think it is much harder to replace a striker. Isak's quality. I mean, who is out there 60, 70, 80 million pounds you can bring in that is as good as Isak, if not better? I can't think of any options at all. I honestly can't. His ability is incredible. So must keep a hold of him, I'm always saying now. But as for his target this season, I think he'll get around 16, 17 if he gets back within the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, boys, load of lads, I'll come to you. Adam set the target in terms of league goals, 16, 17. Is that a realistic target for you? Can you see it being higher, lower, based on whether he's fit or not? What are you going for, Daz?
Yeah, it can be higher. I know this, and I'm monitoring the chat here as well. But yeah, people are worried about this injury, and do we need to send him for the operation now rather than wait until the end of the season? But yeah, he can get higher. Just to answer the question that you had Pete on screen there, how good can he be for NUFC? He can be our Thierry Henry. Tevin will know Thierry Henry, the fellow with the big hand, who he's known as in Ireland. He can be that guy for us. He is absolutely unbelievable. And like Alex says, I want to see him at Newcastle for the rest of his career, let's say. That's it. And Isak for me.
Side question for you, Tevin and Daz. Are you ever going to forgive Thierry Henry?
No, never.
Sure, look, we'll see. We won't forget, though, as Daz is kind of alluding to. Forgive, we don't know. We just might not mention it.
Hey, and I can't believe they didn't go for John Delaney's suggestion of adding another team into the World Cup. That was a brilliant suggestion.
I know.
Hey, lad, if only for VAR, eh? If only for VAR. You'd have been at the World Cup.
All downhill after that for Ireland.
Yeah, Jesus. Oh, well, downhill when Glenn Whelan left stop playing.
But Chris, Adam made a really good point earlier with regards to Isak. Who else is there sort of as good as him in Europe right now? Obviously, the talk has been Erling Haaland, of course, because of his goals record. He's just an absolute machine. But who, if anybody, would you trade him for, or Haaland aside, in your opinion?
See, that's a difficult question, Pete. I was laughing when you started asking me, because me and my mates in my WhatsApp group, who are all Reds and Blues, they all keep telling me that Callum Wilson's better than Alexander Isak, and they tell me that Ollie Watkins is better than Alexander Isak, and Tony and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which I think they're winding me up over, to be fair. But no, I mean, thinking across Europe, I struggle to think of a player who I would swap for Alexander Isak. Like, for me, I think Tevin hit the nail on the head, when he said he can be whatever he wants to be. It's just these injuries. And I think if he can stay off that treatment table and, stay fit And, the squad with our injuries, players coming back from injuries, it's going to be huge for him. And when we make more additions in the summer, which hopefully we will, he's only going to get bigger and better. And Alex rightly alluded to the fact that, in the next 12, 18 months, we could all get a little bit panicky over the fact that other clubs are going to start to look at, arguably the best league in the world and start to think, who could we have in our team? And I think a lot of eyes will be on Alexander Isak. And that's the only danger, the only thing I'm worried about at the minute. But right now, thinking about a player who I'd swap him for, I genuinely can't think of one. He's a great age, as we always talk about.
Great age.
And he's well, you heard what I said to LB the other week when we had LB on, the Man City fan.
Yeah.
And I asked him, he didn't like the question, but I had to ask him, do you think that Pep would swap Haaland for Isak? Now, obviously, it was a little bit tongue in cheek when I asked him, but also, we've spoken about this in detail. In terms of goal scoring, Erling Haaland's elite. Like, he's unbelievable. He's a monster. But in terms of an all-round striker, I think Alexander Isak's got more to his game. I really do. And the more and more we see from him and the more time that he spends on the pitch, I just think he's going to get better and better. Having the accolades, I think someone in the chat said it and just reminded me of it. The glowing endorsement that he got from Zlatan Ibrahimovic, of all people, saying that, he's going to be better than me. I think that speaks for itself. Zlatan doesn't hand out compliments very often. So hearing that from someone like him only kind of proves how good Alexander Isak can be. So right now, Pete, I'm not sure that I would swap him with anyone because I just think he's brilliant.
Mm. No, I would agree. I think his skill set is very hard to replace. And you guys have talked about Thierry Henry in likeness in terms of the way he plays. That is a very, very unique set of skills that he is able to sort of maximize. I would set him on a target in all competitions of around 25 goals. I think that is an achievable target for him this season, providing he comes back from injury quick and stays fit for the remainder of the season, because he is an ice cold killer in front of goal, and you give him an opportunity and he'll put it away, as he's proven before. What I do have a question mark against, and I'll ask the question to any one of you, and feel free to come back in and share your opinion on this. Do you think his continuous injury problems could be something that hampers the effectiveness of his career? Could it have an impact on what we actually see from Alexander Isak in a black and white shirt?
Like Adam alluded to, it's frustrating, but he's having to play. If you look at his stats this season, and I'm having a look about the minutes he's played. Now, the first 2 games of the season, in fact, the first 3 games of the season, in fact, the first 4, there we go, the first 4, we didn't win any of them. He played with Wilson on the bench behind him. He played 68, 66, 72, and 74 minutes. So that was clearly Eddie Howe's plan. If you forget about how those games went, that's when Howe planned to take his first choice striker off. Yeah. If you look at him since then, even when he plays against Chelsea later in the season, we're 4-1 up on about, or 3-1 up on about 65. He plays 81 minutes, and there's a load of those games he's either playing 90 or he's going off injured. So you're right, Pete. Like that is the fear, and maybe that will keep him at Newcastle. Maybe some teams will look at him and think, I'm not going to pay 80, 90 million quid for this lad because he can't put a full shift in. But I think, Adam, you hit the nail on the head before. Let's judge him when he's either got Callum Wilson on the bench pushing him, or next season another striker. Let's not forget, Eddie Howe didn't want to sell Chris Wood, probably because he didn't think Chris Wood was a crucial part of his centre-forward plans, but he had a third striker, and he's gone a whole year now, and it'll be 18 months with no third striker. And pretty much since then, we've only had one of two fit strikers. So I definitely think circumstances have gone against Isak here rather than him being injury prone, mate.
Definitely. Do any of you think that we need to tie him down to a contract in the summer? Do you think it's a necessity that we tie him down for a contract? We've just all talked about, the fear of losing him, the fear of him going to another club, maybe a bigger club, sniffing around him. Do we need to tie him down a little bit like we did with Bruno last summer to a contract that extends it long enough where the fee that a club would have to pay to get him out is too great? What do you think about that? Is that a necessity, or is it something that we don't need to think about further on down the line? I don't know what his contract is right now.
Just checking up, Pete. It's June 2028 is when his contract is.
Okay, so he's still got a sizable amount of time on his contract, but just maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong here, completely wrong. And people in the chat tell me your opinions as well. Could it be to tie him down to pay him more money? To give him the wage that maybe reflects his responsibility in the team. I don't know. What do we think, Adam? I'll come to you on that. What do you think about that? About the potential of a contract?
Well, I think when players are playing well and they're having good performances, they will always try and get a little bit more money out of the club, whether that be an agent side of thing or whatever. Which, I mean, Newcastle is smart. I think in the business point of view, ever since the takeover, I think most of our transfer activity has been good. I can't really fault the club for anything they've done that's been massively wrong. I think Newcastle, for the most part, have got it correct. And a guy like Isak, as I just mentioned before, I think he's near impossible to replace for a club like us, realistically. So I think Newcastle will make it probably one of their main priorities to make sure he's locked down. If he needs to have a little bit put more upon his contract an extra year, or you get more money, I think Newcastle will get it sorted out. So it's always interesting over the FFP because again, Newcastle and the players sales do have to sell in order to be able to get a good amount of money to put into the transfer window. So I'm still a bit nervous over one of our top players going, but I think at least for now, I think Alexander Isak will stay next season. But again, there's still plenty of time for anything even like that. It gets into the discussion. So it's important, Pete. I do agree with it, but for now, I think it's okay.
Pete, just a bit of information coming from Papermaster. He says Isak's contract, he's on 120k a week. Well, if that's true, then he's on just 20k more than Matt Target.
What to say?
Don't do that to me. I still haven't recovered from the Chris Wood $100,000 a week claim. That's just absolute madness. And I refuse to believe that Matt Target's on anywhere near that. I think someone did actually come out and say that that's not the case, which was music to my ears. That is for sure. Maybe he needs another move. Maybe we need to set up that connection with Forest again, and maybe ship him off in the summer. Yeah. That might be part of the conversations next. But look, we've settled you in nicely for the first question. Let's come in with the second one. Right, lots of talk after Saturday, lots of discussions, all about one man, this man. Big Dan Burn, and obviously that moment there where he unfortunately gives away a penalty. And the question I've got, thank you, David Cook, for putting this in our comments earlier on today on the loading account. Has Dan Burn been made a scapegoat against Luton? What are your thoughts about that one? Who wants to start there, boys? I'm not going to come to anybody. I don't want to take the mantle there. Has Dan Burn been made a scapegoat? I need to make sure I edit that to make sure it's coming out correctly. There we go. Has Dan Burn been made a scapegoat against Luton?
I think it's mixed because obviously like tactics has a role to play with this as well. I was at the game for the 4-4, but like, if the crowd see it, if everybody's seeing it, that he's getting paced by Benny, who's an Irish international, every single time he goes to the line, you have to change it. Obviously, for himself, we know that he's not a natural left back. He's centre back. Lewis Hall is sitting on the bench, God knows why. Tino sitting on the bench, God knows why. Obviously, Luton have the height, and that's why probably we played him. But you have to see it after 3 or 4 runs that we're getting torn to shreds. Miggy's not helping him, and he's not helping himself in terms of positioning. So, yes, he is making a scapegoat. He is being made a scapegoat, but I think it was clear to see that he probably should have been taken off, or even put to a 5 at the back a bit earlier. We seen against Aston Villa where Eddie can see it, like Eddie does make changes, but I find it interesting to see, and we always kind of say in Ireland, horses for courses. Like, if you know you're up against fast wingers, i.e. Benny, i.e. Nottingham Forest as well, when we're playing Morrison, Gibbs, White, etc., make a change, because at the end of the day, we're going to see his flaws. Look at the way Liverpool play. Look at the way they play Trent. Trent gets bollocking, but At least Klopp knows when he's playing Trep, he knows where to put him. He'd put him in midfield. He'd put him on the wide. He'd put him as a wing back, etc. Because he knows his strengths and he uses his strengths more than his weakness. Where sometimes Burn, okay, yeah, you can head a ball out when we have a corner and he heads the ball out, and yeah, he's big and tall. But from an attacking point of view, it's killing us, and we can't make the changes. We can say the changes, but surely Eddie can see the changes and make them, and that's the tactical coaching that we need in game, So yes, he is he's being made a scapegoat. Yes, he is defending poorly, but it's the manager at the end of the day that's putting him there, that's doing the tactics, etc. So where's the blame going? Is it solely on Dan Burn? Is it the tactics, etc.? Because by God, like if Ogbenny's going past you, what happens if we're playing Chelsea away in a few weeks? And plus we have Tino on the bench who did nothing wrong, and then Dan Burn came back and it was like, off you go, sit down, let Dan play, and yeah, so it's an interesting one.
Any of you boys got a different opinion or a different slant on that, or do you agree? Look, Alex, I'll come to you.
Tevin, you make a good point there about it's not just about what's happening defensively, is it? Because even when Dan Burn was part of a record-breaking defense last season, there were still fans on his back because everything just went down the right through Trippier and Almiron, and we had nothing on the left until later on in the season. Howe put Joelinton in front of Willock. Then all of a sudden, that side came alive. Now he doesn't have either of those players. So the thing about Burn is you lose a bit of attacking impetus for defensive solidity by playing at left back. But if you haven't got the defensive solidity, what have you got?
Yeah.
As Tevin, you said, you got a guy who can head the ball away in a set piece, maybe. To your original question, is he being scapegoated? No, I don't think so. He's directly responsible for 2 goals in a Premier League game at home. It's a lot of goals to be directly responsible for. And I don't actually mind him getting rinsed. The lad who rinsed him does it to other fullbacks as well because of his pace. What I do mind is him pulling him back. He allows him to get past. He could make a tackle near the halfway line where it happens, but he pulls him back at the worst possible moment. Let him go. Let him score. Nearly all of Luton's goals. If you look at the first one, terrible defending from a set piece. The second one, walking through the midfield, awful midfield play, particularly from Longstaff letting them get away. And then the third and fourth are Dan Burn errors. So it's fair play. User talked about it. Everyone's talked about it. Fair play to Luton. Great, well done, lads. Luton, you were fantastic. Don't think anyone denies that. But Godwin made it easy for them. And I think Dan Burn, if the third one, like I said, it's not the getting rinsed. It's the decision to pull him back when he doesn't give away the penalty, which just makes it easy for Luton. And then he's trying to fix that, and he gets forward when he shouldn't do, and he's got the ball in midfield, and then he passes directly to a Luton player, and the ball's in the back 10 seconds later where he should be defending, and we're caught in the counter-attack. So I don't think he's been made a scapegoat for that result anyway. I think if you're going to be in a back four and directly contribute to 2 goals at a crucial time in the game, you deserve the criticism.
Adam, we'll go to you. What's your thoughts on Dan Burn? Do you think he's been made a scapegoat? And who would you like to see starting against Forest?
No, I don't think we should start him against Forest. I think the collective amount of people, I think majority are going to say play Livramento. I think it's just a question in general, who would you rather play? It's obviously dependent on fixtures, but I think most people are always going to probably put Livramento above a Burn just due to how good Livramento is at his age now. No, I do actually like Dan Burn quite a bit. I think he's crucial in some of the games he play, and obviously he's part of that back four that was so good last season. But in all honesty, it's just a mixture of so many different things. You had to look at the tactics from Eddie Howe. You had to look at how the team was set up against Luton Town. You had to look at the fact that, as Alex said, he's responsible for the third and fourth goal. There's so much that goes into just how Newcastle were against Luton Town, and obviously the reality is we conceded 4 goals to a team which, yes, it did score 4 goals against Brighton last week, but Brighton have been rubbish with all injuries this season, and Newcastle conceded 4 at St James's Park to a Luton Town side. It's just, it is mental when you think about it, but at least we've got a draw. That's what I will say now. But going into Forest, we've got to be much better, especially defensively. We can't allow give away goals like that, because we 100% dropped 2 points against them. I don't think Dan Burn's a scapegoat. I don't think it is at all. I think he's obviously has to be responsible for the way he played. At the same time, you also have to defend him and go, well, you know, collectively as a squad, we had to deal with it. It's not just Dan Burn isolated left, but you've got to deal with all the other players as well alongside him. But in all honesty, I would play Liverpool against Nottingham Forest. I'm hoping Newcastle get back on track. It's a disappointing game, of course, to be able to concede 4 goals to Luton, but just drop Dan Burn for now. We want to see him do well. He's one of our own, but yeah, it was a very bad game for me, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, sorry about that, boys. I had to quickly drop out for my little boy, but I'm not sure if anyone else has kind of had an opinion on that after Alex and Adam. But I'll let you, boys, loaded lads, wail in on this conversation. We talked about it on a reaction show with regards to Dan Burn. Is he the scapegoat? You know, is he responsible? Because I think we've had alternative opinions here on this. What do you make of it all, Daz?
Yeah, just going to answer Lisa's question. Yes, Chris Wood is going to be missing, so that's one less worry after he scored a hat trick against us in the other game. But
I was going to say, sorry, I never thought I'd be relieved to hear.
Yeah, I know.
Chris Wood is unavailable to play against Newcastle United. Who would have thought, eh? Who would have thought?
I know. And I remember I was gutted when he left us. But yeah, moving on. We covered it in the reaction show. Look, there was Shar tracking back from one of the goals as well, or strolling back was another example. It just yeah. Look, we also pointed out in a reaction show that a game or two before Byrne was man of the match. So, but I would personally, I would be looking to start Tino, or dare I say it, Alex Murphy in there at left back if the choice was mine. But and of course we'd love to see what not Chris Hall, what Lewis Hall can do. We've been starved of seeing what he can do, but he will come good. I believe in the future. But I would make a change personally, but I don't think Eddie will. I really don't. He's just going to double down and go with Dan Burn again.
Chris, you're nodding away. Are you in agreement? Are you in agreement? He's going to stick to his guns, Eddie Howe, and persist with Dan Burn. But obviously, of course, first and foremost, how responsible was he for that defeat? It feels like a defeat. It wasn't. It was a draw. But that's still my mentality of that game on Saturday. That's how I'm feeling right now. But what do you think, mate?
I don't think Dan Burn's. I don't think Dan Burn's a scapegoat. I think he's had a bad performance, and he should take that on the chin, because ultimately the 2 moments cost us 2 big valuable goals. So that comes with its own criticism. But the thing that gets me is we saw this from Kieran Trippier weeks ago, and we were all screaming for Kieran Trippier to be dropped because Kieran Trippier wasn't quite at it. And we saw that he had a terrible game against Everton. Similarly with Tottenham, and Eddie Howe stuck by him. So to answer that question, I do think Eddie Howe will stick by Dan Burn, even though I do believe that Tino Livramento should be starting, because in recent weeks and months, Tino Livramento's been one of our best defenders anyway. I think he's very unlucky to be out of the starting 11 at the moment, if I'm honest, because whenever he's played, he's been really impressive. And he is the future. We all know he's the future. So for me, I would like to see Tino, integrated into this squad, particularly, with the season coming towards the close. I want to see Tino Livramento in the starting 11 so that he can make a really good start in the 24-25 season. In terms of who's to blame, it's hard to point the finger, but I do believe that Eddie Howe should have made the change. Alex mentioned before, if we can see it, if the average Joe Blogs can see it, all us fans can see it, and I'm shocked that Eddie Howe didn't make that change earlier, because ultimately I feel like that indecision, that not making the change quick enough, it not only did it put Dan Burn in the spotlight, but also it potentially cost us 2 points, which you mentioned before, Pete. If that change was made earlier, would we have gone on to concede those goals and end up being 4-2 down? I mean, we'll never know the answer to that. But I was baffled, that Eddie Howe took so long to make that change. But yeah, I think we put it down to experience. Hopefully, Eddie's learned from it, and Eddie's learning on the job, and it's difficult at the top. And this is where we are now challenged, and this is where we want to be consistently. So I'm trying not to. I've calmed down a little bit after it. I'm trying not to point the finger at anybody in particular. But for me at this moment, I'm certainly not pointing the finger at Dan Burn, because you'll remember last season, Pete, when we were doing our away days, when we were doing tactics boards, we used to always say, oh, you know, Dan Burn's up against Saka, Dan Burn's up against Anthony, Dan Burn's up against Kulusevski. And 9 times out of 10, he proves us wrong. Yeah. And he did well. So I think for us to kind of, you know, just cast them aside would be harsh, especially after one game, because everyone's entitled to a bad game. Everyone can have a bad game.
No, I think that's a more than fair point. And like you said, we've had numerous discussions on this, and we have chopped and changed over the last year through the position. But Alex, you raised a point in the chat, in our private chat, that I thought was quite interesting. So I'll come back to you, because you made a point just a second ago and said that we miss Matt Targett. And I kind of came back to you and I was like, oh, do you think so? But I don't know if you want to just explore that a little bit more and just maybe explain why you think we do miss Matt Targett, because a lot of fans would say something very different.
Yeah, I think Eddie Howe misses him. It's an option, isn't it? And the thing about Livramento, who I would start personally, but the thing about him is, if you put Livramento in, it goes badly. If he gets rinsed, if he gives away a penalty, and he's a young player and he's playing out of position, even though he did great there when Burn was injured earlier in the season, I just feel like we'll sign Matt Targett for 15 million quid. And the amount of money you've speculated he was on earlier, it wouldn't surprise me, because he just signed a new contract at Villa when we signed him. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's one of the top earners in the squad. And, you know, he started last season in the team, and then Newcastle developed a way of playing with Burn in possession that they essentially play with 3 centre-backs, and Matt Targett doesn't fit that at all. He can't play like that. So his opportunities were limited, kind of tactically as much as ability-wise. But with what Howe has had to do recently and the number of games, I think Matt Targett would have got quite a few games for Newcastle. He would have played a lot when Burn was out. That might have presented Howe with the chance to rest Trippier when he was going through the bad run, because Tino was playing on the other side. I just think it's just another player that we don't really think about. That's a first team squad player who Howe just hasn't had this season at all to try and change things. And like, I'd forgot, a lot of people had forgot about him. And you know, I think he made 17 appearances in the Premier League last season. A lot of them just off the bench late on and stuff like that. So he hasn't played much. But you know, I just think, again, when we look back at this season, it's just another player that Howe probably could have utilised, even if it was just for 5 or 6 games, to give lads a breather, to try something different tactically, to provide a little bit more balance. You know, that left side, when we concede those 2 goals in the second half, the left side is Burn, Miley, Murphy. The left side that you were just talking about there is, you know, last season when the performance against Saka, the performance against Anthony, those performances, it was Burn, Willock, Joe Linton, or Joe Linton, Willock. And I just feel sorry for Burn. I agree, we've all kind of come to the same conclusion. He has to take responsibility for his mistakes, and they are his mistakes. But I almost feel, is he being hard done by? Because should Longstaff be moved to that side? Because Trippier is all right on the other side. Should Longstaff be the one protecting Dan Burn? Miley, I had a look at the stats for Miley, and we all love Miley, and he's probably a generational talent on the ball. But off the ball, he looks like a 17-year-old kid. I think he commits an average of 0.3 fouls per game. That's not a Premier League midfielder, particularly when team lads are running past him like they do. He commits less than two tackles a game on average. And Longstaff, until recently, has been committing less than 2 tackles a game. They're not Premier League stats in the midfield. You know that. So therefore, the defence are having to deal with loads more because they're not getting protected in front of them. And maybe Burn needs a Longstaff in front of him because Miley's right-footed. Miley wants to play on the right, so Miley's playing out of position to accommodate Longstaff. And the easy thing to say is, well, Longstaff scored twice on Saturday, so I'd have to say fair enough on that point. But it does just feel a bit. You can't, and you know, some of the people in the chat have been saying it. Could Newcastle and could Howe be doing more to protect Burn than they are, because he's kind of out there by himself, and I don't know what you would do, like with Murphy and Miley, who have both got their positives. You know, you smell blood if you Luton Town, don't you? Without left side.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point because Chris, when we do the tactics board for away days on the preview, we toy with this every week, don't we? It's and to be fair, I asked you to pick your 11 first, so and you toy with it more than anyone. It's always, is
Chris's
Miley on the
fault.
left?
Yeah.
Miley on the left, Longstaff on the right. Like it is, and it is a really, really difficult situation because of that reason. I thought
Alex's stats were great there, about the tackles. I didn't actually know that. And that just shows, not that we need the stats to realise that, but it backs up, what Alex is saying there, in terms of how much we miss a Joe Linton. Because you see within 5 minutes, Joe Linton's just crunching everyone, isn't he? And he's getting himself about the pitch. He's physical, he's strong, always trying to win back possession. And it is funny now you've highlighted that, Alex, that, you look at the previous games, and it's all very tippy-tappy, very nice, isn't it? And they've obviously found their way through the midfield quite easily. And we are missing that ball breaker, Pete, to use your words. We're missing that ball breaker. And if we had a number 6 right now in the centre of the park who's protecting that back four, it would probably release the likes of Bruno, the likes of Miley, the likes of Longstaff, who are not defensive-minded players. So it just shows the imbalance of the midfield.
Definitely. Look, it's an interesting one that we'll do. I think we'll come back to in the next few weeks to see how that kind of unfolds in that midfield. But there's one other question that I wanted to ask you, because I know there's lots of questions in the chat, so I do want to prioritize them. But there's one. Well, I've got a few other questions. We can probably save them for another day. But I do want to come up to this one here, and it's a controversial one, and it's this one. Is Eddie Howe's job at risk if he does not achieve European football this season? Now, I'm not going to pinpoint anyone to start that conversation. Is there anyone that wants to take that task on? I've got my mindset on this. We've talked about it before. I don't know. I was doing a Rashford then, a celebration, but I don't want to be doing that.
I've seen it for a while.
Yeah, exactly. TV for a while if I start doing that all the time. But it's an interesting question that is dividing opinion. Is Eddie Howe certainly in the last 3 or 4 weeks? Who wants to take that task on? Is he at risk of his job if we don't get anywhere in the top 7?
I think he has enough credit in the bank, but I just think, and it's going back to kind of talk about Isak, we have to match the expectations and aspirations of our players. So is his job under risk? No. But is the squad under risk? It's changing in terms of quality? Yes. So if we're finishing, I don't know, mid-table, 10th, 9th, 8th, obviously there's questions that can be asked, but just remember the likes of Tonali's not coming to Newcastle just, to be mid-table. Bruno is already flirting with the idea of kind of leaving. Joe Linton contract issues, etc. We don't want to go into next season with a worse side because, as you know, there's a difference between finishing Champions League and trying to get players than finishing mid-table and trying to get players. So is he under threat? I think questions will be asked, but I think he has enough credit in the bank. But for us, long-term, we just need to be careful that we don't slip into mid-table. We have a bad season, and then we struggle to get players in. We don't want to go back when Troudy, we were trying to get Troudy, the likes of Ekitike, etc. But we need to be careful because the same way we went up, we can go straight down, and it's not a guarantee given that we can put money on it again and we'll be fourth again. So I think for all of our sakes, so hopefully, and obviously I want Eddie Howe to say, I hate to see him leave, but things in terms of in-game management, not playing the people that, that are guaranteed stars, etc. I think he needs to look at it because we need to be careful that we're not sliding to a position where that might affect us in the season, obviously next season, season after, etc. Because at the end of the day, we know it's a tough league. We played Luton, it was 4-4. So months ago when we're playing these teams, I remember the first game last season we played Nottingham Forest at home. I think it was the first game of the season. We won 2-0. I think it was 80% possession, etc. Now we're drawing against 4-4 against Luton. So you could already see changes where we're losing control. Fans are starting to kind of argue, etc. I think there was a point in the Luton game that everybody was chanting for Tino to come on, which is I thought was disrespectful to Byrne because at the end of the day he's born true and true, and the fans shouldn't be really telling Eddie to put on a player where everybody can see it. But I'm just afraid in terms of the squad moving forward that okay, we finished mid-table. Eddie has enough credit in the bank, but what does our squad look like? What does the aspirations of everybody look like to say, okay, I'll do another year with no Europe next season? Like, I don't know. So we just need to protect it. So yes, I'm saying yes, credit in the bank, but I'd be wary about us sliding into previous kind of systems and performances.
Pete, before we go to Alex with this question, I just want to say that ASM is back, and he's trying to slide into Lisa's DMs by the looks of this.
It's not the first time.
It's not the first time.
He wants to take her over to Saudi, Chris. You need to have a word because
he's going to offer all the Helios money.
Yeah.
Depends what the transfer fee is. That's what I'm wondering.
Speaking about sliding into DMs or trying to slide into someone else's job, there's always someone out with an eye out. So always watch your back, Eddie. That'd be my advice for him. Sorry, over to you, Pete, again for another question.
No, that can be a little side question. Would the panel, would the boys join us tonight take Jose Mourinho? But obviously, first of all, Alex. And we'll come to Adam as well. What your opinions on that particular question? Is his job at risk, Eddie Howe's?
Yeah, if they don't get into Europe, it would be an underperformance in terms of the resources at his disposal. Obviously, there's a huge caveat of the injuries. And what if Isak and Wilson are both injured for the rest of the season? What then, and what is he expected to produce? But I think the Spurs last season, Spurs didn't get in Europe. They finished 8th, and they were rubbish. They got the 60 points, and it wasn't enough. But they were a really poor side. And I think if we look at the teams we're battling out with, Man U and West Ham, they're just not good sides. They're not. They've got positives and they've got good players, but they're not good sides. Large parts of their fan bases don't like their manager. And you look at Brighton, who do like their manager, but they hardly seem to have won a game in months. They win these games sporadically, and then they go on these long winless runs at the minute. And all of those sides I've just mentioned have European football still to contend with for the rest of this season. Possibly not Man United, actually. Got that one wrong. But the West Ham and Brighton do. So with them having the extra fixtures, with us having players coming back from injury, and Joe Willock is just like so big for Newcastle, like he's the forgotten man. I think even with fans, forget how good a footballer he is. He's got to be looking at minimum 7th. I think we should as fans, and I think it was Tevin you said before, we have to match the expectation of our players. Fans should think the same. These are good players. These are good footballers. Eddie Howe's a good manager. Something's going wrong if this team's finishing 8th or 9th. Something's gone wrong, and I'm not saying he's going to get sacked, but if something's going wrong, it means people like Tevin alluded to with the chance to Howe and Burn on Saturday for Tino. People will vocalize that within the stadium, and that draws more pressure on. And then if something's gone wrong, it means it puts a lot of pressure on the start of next season. And if you have the start of next season like you did at the start of this season, the club aren't going to want to back a manager with a load of money in the summer and think we might have to change this. Now, I don't think any of this will happen. This is just answering your hypothetical question. I think we're going to finish 6th. I think we could push high to 5th. Maybe if players stay fit. We've got a lot of winnable home games. We don't have any hard teams to play at home apart from Spurs, and they're not, it's not the impossible job, is it? So I think we'll be fine. But if he finishes 8th or 9th, he'll be under a lot of pressure for his job.
I hope your prediction's right, Alex. I really hope your prediction's right. But Adam, I'll come to you. All the talk with Eddie Howe. Well, what have you made of it over the last 3 or 4 weeks? Some sections calling for his head, wanting him out when results haven't gone our way. Do you think that European football is the key to him keeping his job in the summer?
Well, I think everyone's entitled to opinion. Newcastle fans, of course, when we lose a game, we're always going to be upset. We're always going to blame something. But I think if there's any Newcastle fan telling us now to sack Eddie Howe, I think it's fickle. I don't think we should ever sack Eddie Howe at this current stage. Now, I will defend Howe somewhat how this season, but you got to remember, Sanders Noise straight away picks up a 1-year ban. That's something that's beyond his control. Had Champions League football for the first time this season under Eddie Howe. This is a manager and a group of players for the large part have never experienced European football before. They're not used to playing 3 times a week. I think we've seen that, especially in the Premier League games when we come back from the Champions League. You can just tell it's brand new territory for us. And I think this season, the ownership will be aware of that. They'll back Eddie Howe. If Newcastle don't do well this season, the lads made a good point. It still depends how this season goes. I think it'll put a lot of pressure on the next year. But as long as Newcastle have a half-decent finish, we're expected to get past Blackburn. That's a one game off Wembley in the FA Cup, so we're able to potentially get back there. And I think Newcastle have definitely had somewhat of a disappointing season, but still a lot of positives to take out of it. Eddie Howe's fine until next season. I think it's next season onwards where if we have a similar situation again where there's loads of injuries next season without any European football, let's be negative for a second, say we don't hit European football, but if we still get loads of injuries and there's all sorts going on, then I think there will be a lot of pressure on Eddie Howe at that stage. You probably are starting to think, well, how long is this going to go on for? But for now, until the end of the season, unless something drastically goes wrong, Eddie Howe's fine. And I'll back him as a manager still. There are a few factors that have been beyond his control this year. I think the ownership are aware of that. So to answer your question there, is his job at risk now? Kind of. He's still fine to next season, I think.
Interesting. Boys, I'll come to you. We've talked about it a lot. You know this, but obviously to share your opinions alongside the panel as well. Is Eddie Howe's job at risk if we don't get anywhere in the top 7, Daz?
I'm looking forward to Chris's answer here, actually, from what we've discussed, well, right through the January window. But no, it's not a risk, but he's used up all his credit. Then I'm afraid, and with we'll really see what our owners, our majority owners in PIF are like then as well. So I think it'll be interesting. Let's hope let's hope he does get Europe and we don't have to worry about it. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And though those first 10 games at the start of next season, if we didn't get Europe, if we weren't in a great position, then I think then it's big danger then.
Chris, you've not held back in recent weeks. Talk to us, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Eddie Howe's job is under risk from European football. You boys know my opinion on it. In that, you know, we've got a unique ownership, and we're the ownership are here to win. And Eddie Howe, I love Eddie Howe, and I'm not calling for Eddie Howe's head by any stretch. But I think Eddie Howe will be feeling the pressure right now. If we don't finish in Europe, like Alex, I will be shocked, because I look at the teams above us and I look at the points that we are from fifth, and it's entirely achievable for us to still finish in Europe this season. I think it helps Eddie Howe if we finish in Europe this season. But what I will say, without going too much into it, I will say that at the start of the transfer window, I did say it would be interesting to see if the owners backed Eddie Howe, because Eddie Howe needed backing during that transfer window, in my opinion, and he wasn't. And that kind of raised eyebrows for me, because I do believe that something could have been done to help him, and it wasn't. People don't share the same opinion as me, as X proved. But for me, you know, that was a big thing. Now, if Eddie Howe goes and finishes 5th, 6th, maybe he will get the start of next season, and you know, with all the players back, as Adam rightly said, with the players coming back and Tonali being back and Joe Linton being back, etc. Eddie Howe, and I hope he is given the opportunity to really have a good crack at it next season. But it does worry me a bit that he wasn't backed in any way, shape or form. And I don't mean go and buy £50-60 million player in the January window, because that would have been difficult. But I was meaning, you know, like a loan deal or an option, a loan with an option deal, or just something to help him with this squad. Because up until maybe March, I don't think that the squad's going to be in a position where it's going to be able to challenge on all fronts. And then seeing the likes of Alexander Isak then pulling up, it just worries me, because I just think we're 1 or 2 injuries away again from really, really struggling, and the players are just like being driven into the ground, and I do feel sorry for them, and I do feel sorry for Eddie Howe. I just wanted Eddie Howe to be backed, and he wasn't, and it just left me wondering, why wasn't Eddie Howe backed? So I do think his job's at risk, but I wish him all the best, and I do hope that Eddie Howe, you know, is still Newcastle United manager. I don't want him to leave, but I think with this ownership and where we want to go as a club, I think any whether it's Eddie Howe or even a new manager, I think anybody would be under pressure because the PIF, the Rubens, well, they're all here to win. That's why they've bought the football club. They want to be number one. And if we were to finish below 7th and not be in European football next season, yes, there's been bad injuries, but I do think the finger will get pointed.
You boys know how much I love Eddie Howe. But for me, I think his job is at risk, not necessarily for the position that he finishes in the Premier League. For me, I think his job might be at risk for the decisions that he's making in the game that are affecting the results of Newcastle United. And that's my honest opinion. I think for all the points that you boys have made, and I think all of you individually have mentioned the injuries, okay, the schedule, all those things, I think will fall into Eddie Howe's favour if he's arguing for his position. And I think they'll hold their hands up and say, you know what, it's such a unique season for injuries and in the situation that we've been in, we'll give you that one. But what about your choices on 60, 70 minutes with regards to your substitutions? Making your substitutions far too late, not making them at all in some cases. And I think some of those things, for me, are very much of a naive manager. And I hate saying that about Eddie Howe, but there's an element of naivety about his managerial skills that he's proven, certainly in the last 6 to 8 weeks, that I think he could have navigated through better. For me, and he didn't have the worst game in the world. I'll go all the way back to Luton at Kenilworth Road. Kieran Trippier shouldn't have started that game. Tino Livramento should have started. And I think making that decision, I think maybe has gone against him. He wasn't in result of those goals, but I think confidence levels for someone like Tino Livramento, changing the team around, making a bold statement, changes the mindset of the team, which takes the game in a completely different direction. There are other decisions. You can go back to the start of the season. Liverpool, I'm still pissed off about it now. We should have won that game at St. James's Park. And the decision to take Sandro Tonali off at that point, when he was arguably one of the best players on the pitch and absolutely dominating that midfield, is come back to bite us in the backside.
And Gordon.
Gordon as well, sorry. You're absolutely right. Who was absolutely destroying Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was going at him. They may have been tired. Lads, it was like the 3rd game of the season. They can get by. You know what I mean? The Champions League hadn't even kicked in at that point. Let them play. If they're destroying a player and that player is getting pummeled into the ground, let them keep doing it as long as it gets us the result. And it's decisions like that wound me up. It's almost like it was pre-programmed. 60 minutes, get him off. Put the other player on. 70 minutes, get him off. Get the player on. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that in that situation. And it started right from the beginning of the season. And I just think some decisions he's made, not all, some have really gone against him, certainly in recent weeks. And this is not about bashing Eddie Howe. There's lots of what he's done that's really good. The PSG game, various other games as well. The Villa game in particular was where I saw growth in his game. And Daz, we were talking about it in our chat, making the right subs at the right time to win us the game. We need to see more of that. And we need to see more of that between now and the end of the season to give us the confidence and the club and the owners that he can continue to do this job moving forward. And we can trust that he'll make the right decisions. But that's just kind of my opinion there to add to that. Again, another conversation regarding Eddie Howe that we can definitely come back to in a few weeks as we observe what these boys put together. But I know there's some questions in the chat that we do want to get to.
Yeah, let's fly through them. Just on the poll, I checked in with Lisa earlier. I could have changed since, but 93% at that time, about 20 minutes ago or so, wanted Livramento to start on the left. So interesting choice there. I think we were probably all nearly in agreement on that. Anyone disagree with that, actually? No. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to a question from Stu Amos. Do you think we're regretting the Hall signing? If you could send him back after this loan and spend the 30 million elsewhere, would you?
Great question.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir,
Howe
Alex.
doesn't.
Yeah.
We got no players, and he still can't get a game. Like,
I know.
he might be class in the future, but Howe's comments about him in press conferences saying like it's over to Lewis to get into the team is,
Yeah.
it's a killer. It's a total killer for transfer wise.
Yeah, I think he probably thought he was going to push on, because I know he was starting a lot of the games at the end of the season for Chelsea. We were over for Dortmund away, and your man Adi Amy, I think for Dortmund, had a field day against Hull, field day, and ever since then it was just.
Yeah.
We lost Tevin.
I think his internet's gone. He was in full flow day as well, bless him. But Adam, what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I get that impression as well, because you got to think about when Newcastle's had all these injuries. We got again, we just talked about there, Dan Burns in a Pride game, and you get a different left back in, and he still won't play Lewis Hall. So you think, well, why is he not playing Lewis Hall? We just signed him, but it does depend on the actual obligations of his contract. I'm assuming it's going to be a PR into his minutes, how it's going to work in terms of Newcastle actually having to buy Lewis Hall. But I mean, £30 million is a lot of money for someone his age. It's a lot of money, especially when, again, he's barely played. You can put that money elsewhere. We've got so many different areas of the pitch that we need to get some depth in or get somebody starting in. So when you look at a sign like Lewis Hall, especially when you see Tina Livramento as well, who's playing off his skin, and you see Lewis Hall like not getting involved, you gotta look at it and go, well, actually, we've got to put this money elsewhere. So I think, yes, we are regretting the money. I assume we're not playing him because of that contract, so there's that possibility that you can just send him back to Chelsea. You don't have to buy him at the end of the season, which is, I'm assuming, why we're not playing him. But 100% yes, I think we are regretting it.
There was a comment here from Ronald Wood. Interesting. Hall is not to blame, it's Tonali. Interesting to know your thoughts, Ronald, as to why it's Tonali and not Hall. But yeah, no, interesting. Sorry, Daz.
I blame Hall every day myself as well. I never blame. Sorry, it's Lewis Hall. It's the other Hall I blame for everything. Sorry. So you want my thoughts on Lewis Hall? Yes, I would send him back, but I think he can come good. And if we did end up sending him back, don't you know he'd be like a world superstar? It'd be our luck. It'd be like what happened. Chelsea, they send off all like De Bruyne and Salah and so on. But yeah, so I'm not going to be too disappointed if that we can't send him back, because I think he will come good eventually.
What are the questions we got?
Okay, let's go. Okay. There was one here I wanted to go for. Here's it. It basically was talking about if we had to sell one of our here it is, from Dave Bullman. If you had to sell one of our star players to help create a squad, who would you sacrifice from Bruno, Isak, Botman, or Joe Linton? Tough one here. No one's going for this one.
Well, if you're looking at it from a logical point of view, and obviously we're screaming out for a 6 and kind of different things in FFP, for me, I think Bruno is probably our next sellable asset, but I think it's a sellable asset that we can replace with 2 or 3 players within the squad, and this is including Tonali coming back. Isak is too important. Botman is too important. I think Joelinton, you can kind of see the difference when he's not in the squad. Bruno is holding things together, but still, in my opinion, I think would be able to replace Bruno with people around, i.e. left centre mid, CDM, etc. But I'd still love to keep Bruno. But for me, it'd probably be Bruno with the view of kind of replacing with different types of midfielders that would help that midfield be stronger, especially when Bruno's going from 6 to 10, 6 to 8, and this gap's appearing. But that's just my thoughts.
Well, I think out of the 4 players you got available there, I think every single person is not going to say Isak or Botman. So at that point, you got to look at either Jordan or Bruno. And when you look at the 2 midfielders, Bruno's got much higher value than Jordan. Bruno's already been looked at by the likes of Real Madrid last season. You got looked at. We're going to go off the rumours, the likes of PSG in the January transfer window. He's someone that already has a release clause in his contract. So any team, logically, if they look at someone like Bruno, actually, well, they don't mind overpaying him, but they just don't. I think it's around 100 million euros or something like that, maybe a little bit more, to get a player like Bruno in. It's tricky because you don't want any of your players to go, but on the FFP, the players' sales are completely just shackled to the floor. Someone's going to have to go eventually. And I think Joelinton's the sort of player that I would love to see just play his entire career at Newcastle. He's class, gives 100%, and his growth during his time at Newcastle, you wouldn't have imagined it, would you, when he first came in, being able to transition completely into a midfielder and actually be one of the best midfielders you've seen in a long time. So it's incredible, and I want to see more from him. You're already seeing the team now, how much we miss them. You wouldn't want to say yes to any of them, but out of the four, I think Bruno is probably the only logical answer because he's going to get the most amount of money for him, which means you are able to buy more players. He's going to help in FFP, and he's the player that has the highest value as well. I mean, our teams are going to want him. If we keep him in the summer, it's just going to happen again next window. More teams are going to come in for him. It's a tricky one. It's always going to be hard to keep a hold of. So I think I would say Bruno if I had to pick any of them.
I'm just looking forward to the Adam P jersey number reveals when we do have loads of money that we can spend. I always enjoy those ones.
For next season, I'm sure.
Quality.
I'll be controversial and say Joelinton, because if you think about the direction of the team, when Bruno signed for us, he played 8 and Shelby played 6. So Bruno prefers to play further forward. He plays further forward for Brazil. You're going to play Tonali on the other side, maybe left side. And that means, does Joelinton get a game? Assuming we sign a proper 6, which is a big assumption. But if you do sign that player, Joelinton probably doesn't get a game. He's not going to get a game ahead of Gordon at left forward. So out of the 3 of them, you might actually think Joelinton's surplus to requirements. Maybe that's a little bit of this contract stuff as well. Obviously, he wants more money, which is fair enough. He's a good player, but does he think am I long term definitely going to get a game? Now, there are a lot of games you 100% want Joelinton in your team. When you're playing against Burnley at home or teams like that, when you've got to unlock a pass, and what Newcastle were really bad at last season against like Leicester and Leeds was breaking teams down, and Joelinton's probably not the man for that. Maybe Bruno and Tonali playing further forward are more suited to it. So, like Adam says, you don't want to sell any of them really. You want to keep your best players, sell the players who aren't as good, and trade from there. But yeah, it does feel a lot like Darren Neal's is laying the groundwork for a sale of players of the caliber in the question.
It's an interesting point you've made about Joelinton and his contract situation, because it makes me wonder, is this what Newcastle are anticipating? That Joelinton is not going to be the regular player in the team, the starting 11 that we expect him to be. Now, lots of Newcastle fans say he's so important to our team in the way we play. And he is. You are absolutely right, those that say that. He is integral to how we play now. But in the summer, if you're replacing Dan Burn with a brand new left back, if you are bringing Sandro Tonali back in, as Alex said, to play left-hand side of midfield, we play Willock and we play Joelinton because they've got the pace to cover Dan Burn. If you no longer have to cover Dan Burn at left back, and you've got a proper left winger that comes that comes in, that's got the pace, that's got the defensive nous to manage his role, do you really need that additional Joelinton in the team? Or are you now looking at a player that's technically very, very good on the ball, that has the pace and recovery as Tonali can, and that can dictate the play and cause problems the other end, like Tonali has proven at AC Milan, getting the semi-finals of the Champions League with them and being an integral part of the team. That's without even considering the fact that we can add another midfielder to that in the summer, which I believe we will. And so you're then looking in the summer at a completely different Newcastle United team, and you're looking at a different scenario there. And that's a scenario that might not necessarily need a Joelinton in that team. Now, am I selling him? No, I'm not. I'd want him as part of the squad. He can play on that left-hand side as cover. He can play on the left wing as cover. We know what he did last season. I personally still agree, and I still back my opinion that he played better last season on the left-hand side of front three than he did in a midfield three. And I back that 100%. And I actually think Anthony Gordon coming in and playing as well as he did has actually hampered Joelinton's development, because we're assessing him and thinking he's been amazing last season. He's coming in, he's going to do exactly the same, but he doesn't do the same in a midfield three as he does on the left. He was a replacement for Alan St-Maximin and did exceptionally well. And I just think maybe Newcastle are thinking, do we want to give him 150 grand a week if he's going to be playing as a squad player? And if that's the case, I'm not against the ownership in making that decision, in standing their ground. And it's whether Joelinton values the club and loves the club enough to stay with us, or he goes, actually, you know what, I want to play regular football. I want to keep getting into the Brazilian squad. I need to go and play regular football. And I agree. I think that might well be the move that Newcastle United make if they're going to sell an established first-team player. But that's Chris. I'm not sure what your opinions are on that. I'm just kind of put my 50 pence in.
I'm just going to move on to the next question. Chris, do you want to jump into this comment?
Do it.
I'm going to ignore the question. I'm not selling any of them. None of them are going.
Yeah, go to the next one, mate. Go to the next one.
Go on to the next one. Right, we're sticking with the midfield. This one from Lisa. She asked a question for the panel. Are you worried about our midfield, especially with Bruno one card away from a bat? And he's been so good to not get that card as well. Hold him back, especially against Villa. Who's worried? I am.
I'm worried, but I've been worried for weeks.
Yeah, it's sorry, go on, Tim.
Oh no, sorry, Alex, you go on.
Oh, very kind of yeah. I mean, Newcastle's midfield's just been an absolute car crash for ages now. We went through that spell where teams could just kind of walk through us. Bruno on the yellow card, he can't put a tackle in. We'll go to Aston Villa, and it's almost like at Villa we had such an attacking threat that it negated that midfield problem that we had. And also I felt like Miley and Longstaff in particular in that game really got into Villa and then didn't do it against Luton. And if Bruno disappears, then you're looking at a formation change, maybe going to 5 at the back, and playing 2 midfielders and Miley and Longstaff, or maybe you're looking at Lewis Hall or someone like that getting a game. But if Bruno is out and you have to throw another teenager in there, or you have to risk Joe Willock's comeback by how many times have we seen it this season, coming in, not coming off the bench, but starting a game immediately, playing 90 minutes immediately and risking further injury. I think Bruno's done so well. He has done so well to not get that yellow card, and he's got a long way to go as well. I think it's 32 or 33 games he's got to get to. When he played 23, so it's a complete. The midfield this season is just a complete disaster, and like one of you said earlier, possibly you, Alan, the Tonali thing has just killed the season. It really has. It has killed the season. But also, I go back to that January 23 window when he loses Chris Wood. And I know this guy's career hasn't exactly gone from strength to strength still, but he didn't want to lose John Joe Shelby. Eddie Howe accepted those deals to get Anthony Gordon. It was a trade he didn't want to make. So whilst we're looking at this window and talking about player trading, Eddie Howe was dealing with this a year ago. And for whatever you think of John Joe Shelby's flaws, I guarantee you one thing. He ain't letting Ross Barton waltz around that midfield without getting kicked on Saturday. So they've just got the recruitment wrong in midfield. Like you said, Pete, Joelinton didn't play most of his football in midfield last season, and that he's been kind of pushed back this season. He's missed a lot of games. It feels really bad to not bring a midfielder in some form in January, because if Bruno's out for 2 games, and he's a world-class footballer essentially, or close to it. And when we look shot in midfield, what's it going to look without him for 2 games? Lisa asked the question. Lisa, worried is an understatement.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think we're very porous in midfield. But if you think about it in December as well, everybody was kind of saying, right, we'll get to January, we'll struggle in December, get to January, we'll get Phillips on loan. And what happened in January? The accounts were released. Darren Neals did his interview, and the whole plan changed. So obviously there was kind of noise about Trippier going and other players kind of going and leaving, etc. But it seems like we've literally forgot about the problem, saying, oh, we need CDM. Actually, no, we need to sell everyone. Actually, we're not going to do that. But we actually forgot about problem one, which was we need a CDM. So regardless to trade, to buy, to sell, to buy, etc., we needed to get a loan of any player in terms of a caliber to sit as a 6 or just another body. That's what I was kind of liking when we were linked to Onana, because I was kind of thinking, even though we probably couldn't afford him, that's probably another body that we could play. Because now we're playing in terms of the 3 players that we have, and we have a load of midfielders injured. And it's really weird that all the injuries are mainly in one section of the field. It's midfield, which is really rare to have, So the problem is Bruno will get injured. We'll try rush back Anderson. We'll try rush back Willock. And the exact same thing is going to happen again. So it comes down to January. And I think, Chris, you said it about being a bit suspect that Eddie wasn't backed in January. And that's something that to keep an eye on, because really and truly, like the way we were screaming, people were screaming in the stadium for Dan Bird to come off for Luton. People were screaming in January to get a 6. And it went from Phillips' interview, trade and sell, Bayern Munich, but it's like we forgot the 6 problem. Like where did that go? Because I don't know. We'll see. Like the likes of Longstaff and Miley, they're fantastic. But I do agree with Alex in terms of Miley won't put in the tackle. Now, bear in mind he put in the tackle for the Barnes goal, which is fantastic. But in general, he won't put in the tackle. So, but is that his fault, or is that his fault because it's the development of a 17-year-old who should be finding his way in the team, playing games here and then, coming on, where we're playing him like he's a 20, like Steven Gerrard in his prime, in terms of the actual game, 90 minutes, etc. So it's just a bizarre season. But I still think we probably should have got a midfielder. In John.
And this is the problem, because sorry, who's sorry.
No,
sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah, I mean, you all hit it nail on the head, really. I'm extremely worried about the midfield. The Bruno 2-game suspension is the big one. After that, as you just said, it's Longstaff and Miley. It's a youngster and again a local lad, which is good, but it's also good because he has good midfielders alongside him. It's a tricky ask for where the club is now. It's not just the midfielders, where you got to remember, to Brad get injury, you start a third choice goalkeeper. Wilson injury, you have 0 strikers. We've still got so many problems in the midfielder and the attack and everywhere, really. We're starting to get the out wide players back now, which is good. But it's just been a nightmare this season. The amount of injuries we've had, oh God, I'm feeling just thinking about it now. But yeah, that's what I quickly want to address. Really, it's not even just the midfield as well. We've still got a couple of areas of the pitch that are a nightmare as well. But I'm hoping Bruno stays his best behaviour. We'll get the likes of Willock, Anderson back shortly. But yeah, it's been a disaster, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, I think you wanted to get in.
Oh, good. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say this was my concern, about the January transfer window, and I know a lot of people were saying, we can't buy anyone, we got no money and FFP and etc. But like I said to you boys before, we've known about these injuries since October, November, and if that's the case, and we couldn't bring anyone in, or the budgets were incredibly tight, we all know that we need to trade. But we've known we needed to trade since the back end of last year, and that's why I was so disappointed, because it's abundantly obvious to me, even more so now, that we were in desperate need of a central midfielder. And if and when, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if and when Bruno is out, we are really going to be on the bare bones. Alex is talking about changing formation. A few people in the chat are talking about, Joe White, who's come back in from loan. And this is the frustration thing. This is where my anger came from the other week, because there's a great opportunity for us to still have a promising a promising end to the season. And if we'd have brought in 1 or 2 new recruits in January just to help Eddie Howe out and just to kind of fill those numbers up, there was a really good opportunity for us to have a really strong start, a strong end to the season. And I'm just worried. I hope we do have a strong end to the season, but I just worry that we are, again, 1 or 2 injuries away from potentially falling away and, potentially missing out on that top 7 when it's there for the taking. It's there right now. Alex mentioned before, Man United, Brighton, West Ham. On our day, we could finish above those teams. And, even fifth spot. I said it a couple of weeks ago, 5th spot for me isn't completely ruled out. But these injuries are absolutely killing us at the moment. And if we brought in 1 or 2 new players by however means possible, I think we should have done that. And the fact that we haven't, I hope it doesn't come to bite us on the bum, but it feels like we're around the corner from that.
I thought you were saying top 4 until the Luton game, Chris. Yeah, you were definitely one giving up. Okay, last question for and I have an answer here I want to give first, and then we'll go to the guest. But this is a great question. We actually, Stu has some great questions in the chat tonight, but this one is interesting, especially with the podcasters on, including ourselves. If you could choose to have one guest from the current Newcastle squad, coaching staff, ownership on your podcast, YouTube channel, etc., who would you choose? My answer here, and lads, say nothing, is I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it happens. Say nothing for now. Tevin, we'll go to you first. Who would you have on Irish Mags?
I think it'd be. I'd probably take a detour and probably be a documentary. Have to be Graham Jones. It should be just a day to day in terms of week on week in terms of the life of Graham Jones as kind of coach as Newcastle United. Just even a pre-season and seeing him away from games, he just seems like he's just having a jolly, like he's just having a great time, you know. And I'm here for people having a great time, you know. Even for the times like I've never. We see everybody stressed. You see everybody in terms of injuries, etc. Graham Jones just seems like he's having a doddle. You just seems like, yeah, this is just with the lads. Pictures of him, Saudi Arabia with glass, etc. How's it going, Graham? How's it getting on? Not even about the results or anything, just about him, you know, and his experience. And then in terms of the actual squad, well, obviously the Irish Mags know probably Willock's my favourite player, so I'd love to just chat to Willock. I think he's just a cool dude, cool chap.
Cool.
But yeah, probably Graham Jones or Willock.
Alex, let's go to you for the same question.
Yeah, it's an easy answer for me. Mad Dog Tyndall. I think if you got Eddie Howe on, he would just be Eddie Howe. He would just be polite and nice, but you wouldn't get anything. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't get any dirt. You wouldn't get any stories. I think if Tyndall came on, you could probably just after a couple of minutes get him talking about who he hates, who he wants to beat, who he enjoys winding up, is like his favorite shithousery moments and all that. Plus, obviously, a very knowledgeable guy about football. I just feel like he would be way more. I don't think he's got it in him to be like to play the like politics that Howe does. So I think like in terms of entertainment, but I think just in terms of getting like interesting info, I'd go for the number 2.
You could tell in his interview, his press conference, that he was holding back. It was the fake Mad Dog in that press conference the other day. Like you could tell he's a completely different character when he's around the boys.
No PR training and all that, man.
Adam, who would you have on your channel going on a away days trip even with you?
Well, it's a bit of a boring answer, but I've had to say Amanda Staveley. But unlike, I guess, our interviews you see from Newcastle are the ones that she does online. I think one thing I'll probably change is the type of questions you're asking her. So you ask a more harder questions. So let's say, for example, obviously we're looking at the transfer window. Why were we not back? The sort of questions where you just ask around and you proper try and get the dirt over. That's just the sort of thing I think will be very fascinating to hear about now. I remember towards the start of the season when Newcastle had like a decision go against them or there was something bad in the game. You just want to ask your ownership, well, what are you doing about it? Is there someone going on with the Premier League? It's just the sort of thing where I reckon if you ask all the nitty-gritty questions and she was able just to tell you like everything in detail, I just think it would be very fascinating. I'm also someone as well that just loves a good motivator. I like to Darren Heroes to just talk so well about Newcastle now. They're just the sort of people you want to hear from when, you know, you had a bit of a negative time in the club. You want that motivator, you want that reason that, you know, that person's going to tell you, well, next season we're trying to do this. This is our plan for the next 5 years. Things haven't went well now, but we're going to get this player, but we're going to get this going in the summer. It's just the sort of thing where I can give you a boring answer all day long, but I think Amanda Staley, but if you were able to ask any question you want, I think it would be very fascinating.
I can see that happening, and I would watch that. Definitely, yeah. Adam. Pete, who would you pick?
I like TOON Gamer's response. He said, "I'd have the medical team as," and that's so many. Well, there were so many injuries. I love that one. That's great. But you know what? I would have gone for Amanda Stavely just because I think, like, once she's settled in, she'll tell you anything you want to know. As she already did on Sky when we first got the takeover. She was like, "We're going to win the league. We're going to win the Champions League." She was literally telling them the lot. However, as a player, I'd probably go for a player, and I would probably go for Callum Wilson. And the reason being is the guy's just a joker, and I just want to have a laugh with him. Have a laugh and a joke. And it'd probably tell you a few stories. But yeah, just I like his personality. Just he's the kind of guy I'd probably have a really good chat with. So I'd go with Callum Wilson.
Chris, I probably won't have time to get the picture uploaded. Hang on, give us a second. I'm going to ask you the same question, Chris. And would it be this man, Neville Southall?
It's been ages since we spoke about Neville Southall. At least one show. I've got two, but for different reasons. But I'll go through them dead quick. So I'd pick Anthony Gordon just for the, to speak to another scout set and just for the absolute fume, because I'd get him to say how much he loved Newcastle and just to wind up all my blue mates. So I would pick Anthony Gordon. But then on the other hand, I would love to sit down with Fabian Schär because I think he's just a cool guy, and I'd love to recreate the celebration with him. Honestly, I just love it. I think Fabian Schär's a really cool guy, and he's a very like straight talker. I think you'd probably get a lot of truth out of him as well. So yeah, either Gordon or Schär or both if I could.
And your Lisa is actually on a date with Alison Maximin. She's got her wish as well. But that's the end of the questions, Pete.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know we kept you boys on for a little bit longer. I apologise for that, but it's been a fantastic chat. Thank you to everyone in the chat as well for your questions. Really great questions and comments throughout the show. Lads on the panel, Adam, Alex, Tevin, absolute pleasure to have you on. I hope you've enjoyed the chat and some of the questions. We didn't even get through all of the key topics, and there's a lot more to discuss. And look, I hope you're potentially available to come back on and talk to us again in the future.
Yeah, of course.
Brilliant. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, spot on. Daz, take us home. We're out of here.
We're out of here. And just to remind people what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. It's away days. TOON on tour with Mr. Door on tour.
Yeah, he was going to be ready to throw Chris Wood in our faces, but I don't think he will now. Now he's missing for the next 8 games. But yeah, good to talk to him, preview the game, get Forest's thoughts on how they're going to set up on Saturday afternoon. Massive game. So should be a really good chat. Ben's a great guest on the show.
And also over the weekend as well, we will be back with the loaded reaction on the talking everything about the game, hopefully celebrating a victory. So yes, keep your eyes peeled for that one. Just also a quick shout out to our sponsors in H2O Bathroom Design Co. Already all about the fabulous bathrooms that the guys have there. So go check that out. Check out the website. Also a shout out to theradiatorshed.com and Russ and the lads there. Check out those radiators. That's it. Thanks again to the lads for coming on. We'll see you all pretty soon. And I guess it's in honor of Eddie Howe. How'd you like that? Good night, everyone. Take care.
Drink it. it like